Welcome, Podcasty. I am your podcast store, Chase Porter, and today we're talking about DC Comics that came out this week, October 14th. DC, they hit us with a lot this week, okay? We got Strange Adventures. It's at its halfway point now. We're finally getting a follow-up to Death Metal issue 3, and let me tell you, things are not looking good. And the next installment of the Watchmen universe. Welcome to the New Age Comics Podcast. Welcome, guys. I hope you are doing very well. My week, on the other hand, has been a dumpster fire. Let me just get that out of the way right now. I do again, man, I'm doing this every time on the pod now. I just hop on the podcast and complain like a little bitch. But no, I mean, life is busy, life is hell, to live is to suffer, all of that good nihilism stuff. But I'm pushing through, and you can tell that I'm pushing through because you are listening to my voice right now. If I were not pushing through, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. We'd all be lost in this world. What would we do without the New Age Comics Podcast? Man, I wish the world was that reliant on my ability to record conversations about comic books. Can you even call this a conversation? I've just been thinking lately, like, I'm just talking to myself here. I should develop some sort of like alter ego that can chime in here. Like, I'll put on voice filters, so I'll be like, man, I liked Superman this week. Superman sucked. Or something like that. Okay. Well, this week, we're doing something kind of different, okay? This last week in comics was fucking ginormous, okay? Like fat. Like a whole fucking rucksack of comics. I think, I'm not even going to get into what a rucksack is. I'm pretty sure I do know, but I'll let you guys decide if that's the case. Yeah, this week in comics was giant. We got a lot of comics. I had 13 issues, which, if you've been listening for a while, the 1 week that I did 12 issues was like a total shit show. And maybe not a total shit show. I mean, they still got the show out. And I think it might have done decent. However, I was just like, I'm not trying to do that again. So I had an idea. It was to split it in half, okay? To do 2 episodes. One episode, I mean, it's pretty obvious. One episode's going to be DC, like I said in the intro. And the next episode is going to be the Marvel episode, okay? You may wonder, well, Chase, you have indies, right? You keep up with indie books. You're not a POS, what would they call that? Just like a normie who reads just Marvel and DC. Yes, I'm not a normie. I read some other stuff. And you will be delighted to hear, if you're an indie fan, that I will be doing surprise indie issues, okay? So that's how this is going to work. There's going to be surprise indie issues throughout each episode, 1 to be exact. So look out for that. That will creep up on you during this episode. But as of now, we're going to be talking about DC Comics. If you like the show and would like to support, please go ahead and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Or click like on the video. That helps out a bunch, a total ton, an absolute load of help. Please do that. And go ahead and comment. I'm talking about a lot of thoughts on these comics here. And like I said, this isn't a conversation. I'm really just lecturing. So I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know what you think about these books. If you liked them, if you hate them, if my opinion is ass, if my opinion is mint, I would like to know. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, smash the like button, smash comment section, I think. All the things the YouTubers say. You don't need me to repeat them. Just do them. But also, that being said, you can find me wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're on the go, you can find me on there. If I'm not on your podcast app, send me a message. Just comment to me, send me a DM on Twitter at New Age Comics Pod, and just say, hey man, I listened to your show and I want to listen to it on the fly on insert podcast app. And hey, it's super easy for me to just get it right on there. Trust me. I don't have to get into that inside baseball, but it's not hard. So any support with the show is very much appreciated. You will be my favorite person this week. And before we get into the comics, got a couple things. One, huge spoiler warning, okay? If you've been listening for a while, you know this. I spoil these issues like a muff. I'm going to be talking all the dirty deets, all the dirty damn details of every issue. I was looking for a D word there and couldn't find one. But I'm talking about all the little spoilers in all these issues because I like to talk about the meat of the issue. I'm not into the podcasts that dance around it. They're like, well, let's not get into spoilers. Like, come on. I make sure I read the issues before I listen to anyone else's commentary because I want to know what their commentary means. So this isn't a podcast for people who want to know what comics to buy this week. This is the podcast for those who already bought them and read them and want to talk about them, want to hear the thoughts on them, the takes, the hot takes, the cold takes, the lukewarm takes, all of it. So, big spoiler warning. Lastly, I'm not drinking anything special in the studio here. I had some tea. Here's the ice. I can take a sip of it for my ASMR sip, but I mean, I really won't be sipping anything. So, you're going to get the ASMR Hydro Flask water bottle squeak. You know, when you take the cap off a Hydro Flask and it gives you a little squeak like this. Oh, damn it. It didn't do it. One sec. Oh, there we kind of got it. Let me try it again. There you go. There you got a couple of them. Well, I'm just drinking water. And water is the life force of us all. So I'm okay with that. I'll give it a little sip here. Nice. I don't know. Are these ASMR sips even funny to people? I truly wonder that because every time I listen to them, I'm like, that's disgusting. But that's how I get the ears. That's how I get the ears on the pod. Okay, anyway, I will stop stalling and get into the comic books finally. So let us go with some DC Comics. Kicking off, we got a lot of good issues to talk about this week, and I'm going to try to keep it fairly brief because last week I bombarded you guys with an hour-and-a-half podcast about nada. JK, it was about comics. But now we're talking about Superman 26. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis, drawn by Ivan Rice, and colors by Danny Miki. Now, last time we met Superman's new enemy, new equal. His name is Eisno Alcor. He's from a planet or a society, something like that, called Sinmar. And essentially, he was designed to be the mirror of Superman, this civilization Superman, an apolitical symbol of hope. We saw the whole thing. We saw his origin story, and it ended with his people just totally fucked up, and it was a whole thing. Right now, in the next issue, this is Alcor's breach issue, okay? Literally and figuratively. He is breaching into Earth's atmosphere as well as our main characters' lives. So he's making contact with Earth, he's making contact with Superman, and he's almost making contact with the Daily Planet. So my thoughts on this issue, I really did like this issue. I'm digging this whole Sinmar, Alcor, Eisno stuff. We had a great cold opening, a perfect Bendis, what do you call it? In medias res is what it's called. We had a perfect in medias res by Bendis here. It's just Superman and him just totally fighting the mess out of each other, just destroying everything around them. And then, of course, you turn the page and it's back to chill land. Now, I've turned the page away from the action, just some cuteness, because Lois and Supes, they're cute as hell. They're seriously the cutest comic book couple on the earth. Superman, he's just kicking back, trying to catch some shut-eye, I guess, just chillax in his super suit. I guess he sleeps around in his super suit. And yeah, he's just being super cute with his wife. We also get some checkmate teases here. You guys remember the whole Event Leviathan thing, and then there was the checkmate one-shot, and we were supposed to get a checkmate series. Well, I guess I heard from my local comic store people that got canceled. I don't know how true that is, but we get a couple more teases for it here. Lois shouts him out as she wakes up. She goes, checkmate! And then Superman gives another one when he's listing off just all the BS he's been through throughout the Bendis run, and he lists checkmate as one of them. However, after some smooching, they get cock-blocked by the cock-block extraordinaire, Kellex, and he's basically just like, Superman, something's happening. Come to the isolated base that you have out here in the tundra. And so he goes there and finds out Alcor is inbound on planet Earth, and there's a 14-hour timer until he gets here. One question I do have, though, in this scene, Jimmy Olsen is just sleeping at the Fortress of Solitude. What the hell is that about? Like, I mean, we had the Jimmy Olsen series. I don't remember it ending with him moving in. Please explain that to me. If you are more savvy on the Bendis Soups run, I just don't know why he's up in there. It could be because of the FBI thing that's going on at the Daily Planet, which we get some more of throughout the issue. Superman is at the Daily Planet. He's talking to his homies, and then Kellex says, hey, it's actually inbound for the Daily Planet, not just Earth, and it's coming right now. Superman zooms off. He doesn't have to hide his identity anymore, which is a little neat. And him and Eisner have this whole ass fight in space, and it's so cool. The art is so awesome. I don't know what the deal is. Like, Eisner, he does this like circle thing. I don't it's like energy whip circles. It's super cool. That's all I have to say. He is, I don't know, he's just such a cool looking character. I love his character design. It's just really neat. Eisner makes Superman's like eyes roll into the back of his head. And when he awakes, this is like probably my favorite page in the issue. When Superman awakes, Eisner is like riding him like a surfboard, just like through the planet, through the atmosphere. And they're headed right towards the Daily Planet. They're falling, and boom, they're in the Phantom Zone. That got me. I was not expecting that at all. So I guess there's a whole thing where if anything is about to make contact with the Daily Planet, it gets like automatically portalized into the Phantom Zone, which is, hey, that's kind of cool. I did skip out like, so I've been reading this Superman run, but only from like issue 17 to now. And before that, I only read issues 1 through 6. So that means 7 through 17, or 7 through 16 rather, about 10 issues there I have not read. So if that's something that Bendis has set up before, I know there was a whole thing with the Phantom Zone in the first arc, so it wouldn't shock me if he kept setting stuff like that up. But Superman is squaring off with him now in the Phantom Zone. He can speak several languages. I tweeted about this, but like he can't talk to Eisner. He doesn't speak English, obviously. And there's a scene where Superman's like, English, any language? And then he's like, no importa cuál language de la terra. Like he hits this whole like language thing where he then speaks German and then Chinese, and then he speaks like Kryptonian. And that just like was very funny to imagine Superman speaking all of these languages and dialects just in his voice. Just gave me a little chuckle. But Alcor is piecing Superman up, and that's kind of how this issue ends, just with him doing these like energy whips and just like Superman just getting totally pummeled, which I'm kind of confused here. So the last issue ended off with Alcor finding a bunch of his homies dead, and then some of them were like, you weren't our Superman. And then he's like, Superman. And then I guess that's just how it ends. And now like he's mad at Superman. So I don't know if that means Superman like killed his homies, or if they just were like invoked Superman's name and it pissed him off. I am not sure. Maybe Superman was framed. I think that could be neat. And that all being said, like this is Bendis's last arc of this run because he's ending it in December. So I think it's going to be issue 28 that this ends on. So I kind of am like, bruh, what's going on here? But I really like the whole language barrier thing. I think that's really cool. And I like how Bendis is paying attention to that. And it ends in an abrupt spot, but it's still very good. And I'm super pumped to continue. Obviously, we're expecting Superman to kick Eisner's ass. But I kind of would like them to talk. I just want them to talk it out. No, I mean, the whole thing is Eisner is like the mirror of Superman. So I want to hear them like trade philosophies, and it's, you know, here's my little guess. I think it's going to end with Superman being able to speak with him somehow, and he's going to kind of lay out his philosophy of being a Superman for his planet, and it's going to totally change Eisner's life, and they're going to be best friends or something like that. I guess we'll see. Either way, I'm loving this series, and I can't wait for issue 27 and 28 and for the finale. Moving right on through, we are talking about Strange Adventures issue number 6, written by the amazing Tom King, with art done by the extravagant Evan Doc Shanner and Mitch Gerads. So this series has been awesome. Last issue, Adam Strange and his wife Alana, they're trying to keep Adam's name clear of the murder and galactic genocide that he has been sort of framed for. I don't know. It's sort of, I think as the audience, we're not supposed to know whether or not he actually did these things. He obviously didn't do the murder. The murder was of some guy who got pissed at him at a book signing, but we're sort of in the gray as to if he did galactic genocide. And in the last issue, we were getting very hot and very steamy with Adam and Alana. They're doing the thing in a cave, and they're also doing the thing in front of Congress. Okay, they're not having sex in front of Congress. They are having sex in the cave, but they are testifying before Congress, at least Alana is. And all this is going on while Mr. Terrific, the T-Man himself, he is investigating Adam Strange on behalf of the Justice League. And I love that dynamic. Mr. Terrific is awesome. I do not know anything about him, but he is very, very cool. And I love the way that King is portraying him. I trust that it is a faithful portrayal. And in this issue, we're getting some more flashing back as this series has been doing this whole time. We're looking at the Pict War, Pyykt, the Pict War that Adam and Alana fought in. And in the current timeline, we are getting some Mr. Terrific and Alana stuff. They're going on a date or something like that. I mean, I guess they're just hanging out, and she's like, hey, let's go on a walk. They're walking, they're talking, they're going to the bar, and they're waxing poetically, of course. This, to me, kind of redeemed the last issue. I did not hate the last issue. Do not twist my words here. I really did like the last issue. I thought the Congress scene was very cool. However, to me, it felt like a little bit of a, I don't know, like every issue has had one of those like, oh shit moments. And that issue just sort of lacked that for me. So it felt slightly forgettable. I mean, it had the Congress, it had the sex, like what else can you ask for? But for me, I could have asked for more. This issue gave me what I was asking for. I really like the whole dual timeline story thing that they're doing. I love that they're keeping up with it, and dedicating one art style to one like timeline is very smart. It's just a way that us as the audience can know what's current and what's not. Doc Shanner, he is drawing the past while Mitch Gerads is drawing the current. And I noticed in this issue, they were doing a lot of like mid-page switches, meaning that like it's not that you turn the page and the art switches up. It's that midway through the page, the art will switch up. I thought that was a neat little touch. It was probably a conscious touch. I really like there's this kind of paralleled paneling in this book. There's an amazing scene in the past. It's just drawn beautifully of Adam and Alana. They're looking over this like gorgeous space society mountainous landscape. And the only text on the page is Alana just saying, "Oh, Adam." And they do this page twice. They do it once in the peaceful times, and then they do it once in the war times. But the pages are paralleled in art style, and it's just an amazing little touch that I loved in this book. But honestly, I'm gassing up Doc Shanner a lot here, but really Mitch Gerads is stealing the show for me here. Like, there is so many scenes that are in like the snow. When they're walking around, it's all snowy, and I'm just like head over heels for how he draws and colors these. It's so, I don't know how to describe it. I just love the snowy, cold, dark vibe that he gives all of his moments. There is also a bar scene that's just super well drawn and super colorful. It's just every scene, every single scene. And specifically, like a lot of these colors just pop so hard for me. When they're in the bar, it's all yellow. And then when they're out in the snow, everything's so blue. God, I just love it. There is a funny like Seth Meyers scene in here or something. There's a scene where they're watching TV and it's a late night talk show and it looks like Seth Meyers. But there's this guy, he's talking about how everything was going swell and then an alien invasion like canceled it all. I think he's talking about some film production. This to me sounded like a very overt reference to COVID. I think that would be kind of cool. There's not like I guess when I say very overt, I don't mean like they name drop COVID. That would be very overt. But I mean, they're just talking about like everything went well. And then this one thing happened and everything started going terribly. And I mean, I think we all relate to that right now because that's exactly how life went. So it's most likely a reference. However, in this bar scene, there is an amazing conversation between Mr. Terrific and Alana where she's talking about how she lost her child in war, in the Pict War. And then Mr. Terrific is talking about losing his family in a car accident. And there's some wonderful writing here where they're kind of comparing those two tragedies. And I love the angle that King takes where both are just simply random. Like, war is completely a random tragedy that no person can control exactly, especially like casualties of war, as well as what Mr. Terrific is talking about, where he lost his whole family in this car accident. And Alana kind of compares the two with a line that I love the way Tom King can write like punchy bubbles, but she says, "Is it really all that much less than a car accident?" And God, I don't know. That just took me away. And Mr. Terrific in this scene is just so heartfelt, where he's saying that he felt really what made him feel guilty about all of it was the relief that he felt because he wasn't ready for a child. God, like when people say that comics are just like silly and fun, refer them to this book. I mean, obviously this is Black Label, but still the graphic novel telling medium is so powerful. I was describing my girlfriend the what makes it so beautiful, and it's really just the perfect marriage between art and literature, if you ask me. That especially books like this that really do put so much time and effort into not only the way things look, but the way things sound. God, I just love it. If you can't tell, that's why I'm here doing a comic book podcast, because God damn it, I love some comic books. Anyway, let's move on. There is a scene after that where Mr. Terrific and Alana, they go to the Spoon Bridge in Cherry, which I think is in Minneapolis. It's like a little art monument. And it's a really awesome scene. I'll read you just a little bit of the dialogue here because it's amazing. Alana says, "Does it mean something, the Spoon Bridge?" Mr. Terrific says, "I'm not sure a big cherry and a big spoon can mean anything, which is probably what it means." And I loved that line. I think it really does simplify like just art in general, that the fact that something can mean something is really all that it's supposed to mean. And I know it's like we're going in circles there, but I don't know. I just really liked that line. And this is what I mean when talking about punchy dialogue. The monument references do not stop as they wander over to this big bell. It's not the Liberty Bell. It's some other bell, though. And Mr. Terrific talks about the whole poem of Whom the Bell Tolls. And it's also just an amazing scene where they recite that poem and just kind of reflect on the meaning of it, which then there's a great parallel where within the war scenes in this book, there's this trope of them saying 3, 2, 1, and then on the 1 is when they like shoot something or kill something. And Alana does that here where she makes a snowball and says 3, 2, throws it, 1, ding on the bell. And that was just also an awesome parallel. I feel like that is going to be significant throughout this series. And this whole time, Mr. Terrific, he's supposed to be interrogating Alana. Like, he's supposed to be figuring out what the hell is going on with them and everything. And he asks one question. Just one question. Now, this is my favorite. Okay, actually, no, I can't say this is my favorite Mr. Terrific scene because I like the scene a couple issues back where he slaps the shit out of that dude way more. However, this is still a great scene where he just says, "Let me ask you, after Adam returned and gave you the news about their daughter dying," he says, "Where'd you bury the daughter's body?" Alana's answer is not sufficient. She seems flustered as she answers. She says there wasn't a body and they just put up a monument, and he goes, "All right, then, I guess I believe you." And then she's like, what do you mean? I don't understand. And then he's just like, "I'm going to keep looking at what happened, and you need to talk to your husband about your daughter." Whoa. I thought that was so fucking badass and so cold. God, I just love Mr. Terrific in this series. He is so amazing and so perfect. At the end here, like I said, we're getting into spoilers. Adam Strange, he gets swiped. He gets shot while they're flying. They're flying with their jetpacks. This is in the past, so this is during the war. He gets shot. Him and Alana fall. The shadow, 3 shadows, they stretch over their bodies, and then he's gone. And that is how we end off this issue. Man, I'm very excited. This felt a lot more nuanced than the last issue, and maybe that's my thing about liking this issue a little more. It just felt a little more nuanced, a little more thoughtfully paced, maybe is the way to put it. We had very thoughtful pacing as to how the story was supposed to be told. So I am kicked back in full. This series is totally amazing. And I want to pose one question to you guys right now. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. So please let me know what you're thinking. Is this going to be better than Mr. Miracle? That is the question, because that this is seen as like the thematic follow-up to his Mr. Miracle run, right? This is another maxi by Tom King. Is this going to be better? Obviously, we're only halfway through this one, and Mr. Miracle's just amazing, totally a classic. However, what's going to be better? What is going to be more memorable for Tom King? I guess we will have to see, but I would like to hear what you guys think. Do you think that Strange Adventures is so far better than Mr. Miracle, or is it too soon to say? Is it not as good? Is Mr. Miracle just like, are you crazy, Chase? Mr. Miracle is so much better. Let me know. I would really like to know. Regardless, I think this series is doing totally awesome, and I guess where I stand on that is I do have to wait and see. I am really liking where this is going, but I really didn't realize how much I loved Mr. Miracle until it was all said and done. So I might be sitting in the same position with this Strange Adventures. Maybe I will do a whole pod comparing the two. Regardless, can't wait for the next issue. Moving forward, we're talking about Detective Comics, issue 1028, written by Peter J. Tomasi, drawn by Nicholas Scott, and colors by Trish Mulvihill. Detective Comics, it has been really good. You know that if you've been listening. You know that I love this series. Last issue was the 1000th Batman issue, 1027, mega anthology, blah, blah, blah. So I guess this issue is the Dark Knight's 1001th issue. Is that how you say that? 1001th? Is it 1001st? I don't know. We're here with 1028. Joker War has ended, okay? It's completely over. It ended in the main series, and this series was tying in for the last couple issues. For, I think, excluding 1027, I think about 3 or 4 issues it was tying into Joker War. So now we're kind of in Joker War Fallout territory, okay? But this issue has big one-shot vibes, is the way I would put it. In my opinion, probably the best thing about this issue is sort of what it sets up at the end. I will get into that, but it starts out with this new guy, new villain. I think he's new. His name is Steve Holman. He's the son of Jack Holman. I don't know who these people are, but they wear a mask, this like green mask. They ride a horse. They swing swords, and in the beginning of this issue, he springs up and he kills a cop. And Batman pretty much works to take him down. Classic 1-2, that's the comic issue recap. Honestly, I mean, I don't really have a ton to say about this issue, which kind of sucks. Like, I'm always raving and ranting about detectives, but this issue was kind of just whatever. It was very one and done. I do like a couple things about it. There's this intro scene where Bruce is at a funeral, the cop's funeral, and he's eavesdropping on literally everybody there, just pretty much because he's Batman. He has this like earpiece that's amplifying everything he's saying, and that was very funny just to think, well, Batman literally can just listen to anything that he wants. He is Big Brother incarnate. The villain dude here, Steve whatever, he's kind of cool. Like, I really like how like ruthless he is. He's that whole vibe of like where a victim's like, no, and then just like, bam, he'll just kill him right there and like straight-faced. I do like that. I think that is very cool. The ruthlessness is dope. Particularly that's exemplified in a scene where he knocks on some guy's door and then he literally just shoves the sword right through the peephole and kills the guy. I thought that was a cool little scene. There's actually a little setup for the end here in the middle of this story where Bruce is at the crime scene of this peephole stabbed guy, and Bullock is there, and he is like, get the hell out of here. Pretty much. He kicks Batman off the crime scene. I think he cites something like, the commissioner's always up my ass about it. Like, I'm getting shit when you're here, Batman, so get the fuck out of here. Holman is then, he's trying to kill this other guy. This guy he like lures to this horse place. Batman's of course there. He says, I've heard enough, and then enters the fray. He engages this Holman dude. And my favorite part about this is Bruce does like the villains do, and he hops up and rides a horse, which, I mean, that's always plus points, right? If anybody in a comic rides a horse, it makes the comic good automatically. I mean, I will say, though, I could have used a little more horse. I got a sickness, and the only cure is horse. Okay, that was so stupid. I hate that I just made that joke. But he eventually catches this Steve dude. Case is closed. It's a little generic. He pretty much just captures him, and then I think we're supposed to assume he just takes him to the GCPD, and he's in Arkham or whatever. I think I would have preferred this issue to be a little more like Joker War. if that makes sense. A little more Joker War recovery, more fallout. They were calling the detective issues collateral damage, and I think this issue should have been like the literal collateral damage. Like, it should have been Bruce healing the whole city, right? He's going around, he's like fixing buildings. I would have preferred to see that. It just would have felt a little more like responsive, I guess, to what's been going on, because this issue can really be read like literally whenever. You could read this as your first Batman issue, or you could read the entire Detective Comics run and then get to this one, and you'd still be like, what happened here? Why was this a significant issue? Maybe this Steve dude is like a part of Tomasi's plan, but I also have noticed Tomasi, like, I love what he's doing, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of leaving a lot of loose ends. And I mean, it's just true. Like, even from the beginning of his run, if you remember, he did the first arc, which was like Bruce in this like simulation thing. And then the next arc, which led out of Detectives 1000, it set up the Arkham Knight. And if you remember the way that arc ended, it ended with the Arkham Knight just like escaping, like she was escaped. And like, where's she been? I just don't know where she's been at. And I was expecting her to come back, and that's kind of how this issue leaves off. Like, will Steve come back? What's going on? Tomasi, clean up the loose ends here. I do love what you're doing, but I would like to see some of the loose ends kind of come back around. I think that would be awesome for the people that have been reading this series this whole time. But the end here, the end that I have been hyping up, I did like it. It's literally just the last panel, but it ends with this like mayoral candidate guy. He's one of the policemen that was at the funeral. He's on the podium and he's talking about ridding Gotham of vigilantes, which is dope. I cannot wait for that. I think that's going to be super cool, especially in light of all the Joker War stuff. And I've looked ahead at some of the solicitations, and as well, there's a little teaser here on the last page. There's a mirror teaser, the mirror, I guess. And if you go look at the cover, like go to League of Comic Geeks and go look at the cover for 1029, Mirror looks sick. Like, he really does look super dope. I love his look. He reminds me of Looking Glass from the Watchmen TV show. So I'm very excited. Even though this issue was whatever, I'm still into this run, still excited for what's to come. And I think that's the beauty of this run, is there can be kind of just a whack arc, and it's not like, oh fuck, I'm dropping this series because it was just dookie. Like, you can have an issue that's just kind of meh, and then hop right back into some dope stuff. So can't wait for 1029. Okay, now we're moving into the much anticipated here, okay? This is Rorschach issue number 1. I can't tell you how excited I am to even be uttering those words in that order. This is a double Tom King week, because this is written by Tom King, drawn by Jorge Fornes, and colors by Dave Stewart. This had tons of hype, tons and tons and tons of hype, but it also had tons and tons and tons of skepticism. I think that's just gonna be the case anytime there's any follow-up to Watchmen, just given Alan Moore's reactions and feelings to Watchmen continuations. That's just to be expected. Regardless, I quickly overcame the skepticism. I didn't walk in super uptighty. I'm not one of those people that thinks Watchmen can never be touched, although I do respect Alan Moore's creator rights. I think those are also very valid. However, I think Tom King is doing something very worthy here. I think he's doing something super respectful to the canon. I'm getting ahead of myself, and I don't even want to attempt to really recap this issue because there's just a ton that happens. There's so much story that's set up, but I will give it a shot. From what I can gather, this is set in the Watchmen world, okay, in 2020, so current times, and there's a presidential candidate running. His name is Turley. There's all saying vote Turley. And there's an assassination attempt that has been made on him by a guy and a girl, and the guy, he's dressed up like Rorschach. I guess that's sort of the pre-tease for this issue. So again, to my thoughts about it, this book hooked me like a goddamn fish, guys. Seriously. Like, literally from the credits page, actually. You open up and it's on this credits page, which is just like really awesome. I love the way that it's all set up. But it's because what sold me on it is there's actually a minimal amount of like ink splatter on it, which is just so cool. Like, just such an obvious little touch to just Watchmen in general. But then obviously there's just this completely insane intro scene, intro pages with Rorschach, and he's getting killed. Like, I'm sorry, a little spoiler here, but if you open up the book, it happens on the first page. Rorschach dies. He gets shot in the head. And then you turn the page, and this is probably my absolute favorite page. It is just, they're on the catwalk for this campaign rally, and it's just balloons everywhere, red and blue and white balloons. And then, of course, Rorschach and this girl just laid out dead and bloody. This is a very classic in medias res. This event happens, and then we really get to see all the lead up for that throughout the issue. We meet the FBI investigator that's kind of assigned to this case, and he goes and does the autopsy. It doesn't do the autopsy, but he witnesses the autopsy of these two people that have just been killed. I guess the guy is like 90 and the girl is like 19 or something like that, which is really crazy. After that, he goes to the surviving police officer, and this is kind of where we get the full story, okay? There's this crazy scene near the end-ish of the book where the first responding police officers are going to investigate the catwalk after someone had sighted a gun up there, and they're in the hallway, they're approaching the door, and I don't even know what to say. There's a whole scuffle between the door. The surviving police officer, he loses his gun onto the other side of the door. They say, "Where's your gun at?" And then just a barrage of bullets fly through the door. They kill his other officers, and he is literally just sitting there. And this is where he confronts Rorschach. And oh my God, they do the classic like reveal page where the dude is just looking up at the door, looking that way, and then you turn the page and it's a full spread of Rorschach, and he hits us with the classic herm. I don't know how else that would sound, but the herm, like the classic Rorschach herm. He does the herm, and now we are caught up because now the investigator, he walks out of there, and then there's this really cool scene where he's listening to a sequence of tapes playing. These are tapes that they found with the Rorschach guy. And this is very good. I love the way they sequence this out. And what we hear is really strange. To me, it sounds like a Ouija board reading. I don't know. There's people saying they want to make contact with certain people, which I'm pretty sure is how the Ouija board works. And while they're there, there's this guy. His name is William Meyerson. And he's apparently this old pirate comic book writer, which is a nod to the original Watchmen canon, as pirate comic books are like the main thing. This writer asks to speak with somebody, but right when he says, "I'd like to hear from," it cuts out, kind of. The text gets all wobbly and weird, and you can't read it. So I assume if that were to sound like anything, it would sound like blah, 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 blah. The investigator, he is talking with somebody, and I guess they ran the prints for the guy, okay? They run the prints, and then they get some copies of some Rorschach prints, like the actual Rorschach, like Walter Kovac. They get his prints, and they run them with the author, and apparently they match. So you know what this means, right? This means that this book opens up with Rorschach dying, the actual Rorschach, if that's what this means. Okay, we're all skeptical here. I get it. But if this is true, that means Rorschach just died. He just died in 2020. Maybe, I don't know. I think that's where we're all at. But holy shit, that ending leaves me off really horny for this book. Like, I really liked this book. It had super subtle storytelling that was just such a joy to read, which is kind of ironic given that the first page is anything but subtle. But funny enough, I thought there would be more references to the Watchmen world in this book. Like, I genuinely thought that was going to be the case, given that the show made like 90 million references in like every single goddamn scene. I was expecting more of that here. Maybe that's why Tom King decided against that. However, we do get some references. There's a couple little art notes that I want to go over. If you've read Watchmen, obviously, you know that the art is something that's always to be like double, triple analyzed, because there's always a bunch of symbols and stuff that leaks in. And I noticed a couple here. On the first page where Rorschach gets shot, in the third panel from the left, there is a smiley face. If you look up, there's little lights that are, I assume, guns being fired, like the muzzle flash from the gun. And then there's just wires and strings that are also running on the roof. And they make a smiley face. Go look at it. During the autopsy scene, like, you always have to look out for symmetry. Symmetry is like just a reference to Rorschach in general, for obvious reasons, right? Not only is the Rorschach test symmetrical, but then that's the whole quote about Rorschach that, what do they call it? Fearful symmetry, right? So during the autopsy scene, they're doing a top-down bird view, and we're getting some symmetry between the autopsy tables. I very much liked that. Right after that, there's a scene where they're showing someone purchasing a Rorschach mask from a Halloween store. And as he's walking out of the store, there is a Dr. Manhattan mask that is peeking at him, like very explicitly. So that makes me think, like, is Dr. Manhattan going to be relevant in this issue somehow? I'm really wondering. I'm also wondering, are we going to even see the other Watchmen dudes in this series? I guess we will have to keep reading. But lastly, the last little nuance moment that I noticed was the tape recordings. As the tape recording is playing, it chooses a very symmetrical position to display the tape recorder. And I like how the wheels are in constant motion. They're constantly spinning, so you're not seeing the same orientation of the tape wheels ever. However, I really liked how they played that. It was very cool. A couple more just like leaving thoughts from this issue. There was a moment where they actually canonized the Watchmen show, and there's been some coverage about this. So it's while someone is purchasing the Rorschach mask, and it says, but there's a million of these things. It's a pretty popular costume item, even after Oklahoma. Now, if you know the show, you know what happened there. The whole Oklahoma thing is very explicitly referencing the show because it all takes place in Tulsa. And what he's referring to is the whole 7th Cavalry Rorschach cult thing. So that was very cool. If the show is now canon, because essentially the show is like the sequel to the book, like the true sequel, not Doomsday Clock, but the true sequel to the Watchmen book. I'm wondering, how many references to the Watchmen show are we going to get throughout this book? I would love to see a ton. I really liked the show. I can get into those thoughts at a different date, but I'd love to see Looking Glass. I would love to see Sister Midnight. I would love to see fucking anybody. Any character would just be so cool to see. Ozymandias, throw old Ozymandias in there. I guess I'm trying to remember where all the characters leave off at the end of that show. Regardless, I think this issue did an awesome job sticking to canon of Watchmen, but also acknowledging the show, which also stuck to the canon super amazingly. And I'm also really wondering, are we going to get to know more about this FBI guy? We have to. Like, we have to get to know more about him. If he's the main character, we're going to learn his whole life story, and we're probably going to learn some fucked up shit in his life. I mean, that's just the Watchmen method. Everything's terrible and dark and nihilistic. But my final leaving thought here, how on earth is Tom King going to cheese the most iconic comic death ever? If you've read Watchmen, you know that fucking Rorschach getting ligma'd by fucking Dr. Manhattan is like everyone's favorite moment of the whole book. King, this is to you. How on earth are you going to undo that? Because you just did. If this guy was Rorschach, which at the moment we can only go off of the fact that it is, if this guy is Rorschach, then you just undid his death. First of all, how on earth did Rorschach survive getting like vaporized? No idea. Second of all, what audacity do you have, King? Well, see, now I sound like one of those people that doesn't like when they mess with the Watchmen universe. But I will say, if they somehow undid that Rorschach death in a dumb way, I would genuinely feel a little upset, because I think that would way too much like impede on the original canon. Anywho, this book was great. I literally can't wait to read the continuing issues. This is going to be an amazing next year, considering this is 12 issues. So here's to 1 year of Rorschach. So surprise, surprise, this is not a DC comic that I'm talking about. This is your indie corner, the indie hour, the indie inch? I don't know. We're talking about 7 Secrets, issue number 3, written by Tom Taylor, drawn by Danielle D. Niculio, colors by Walter Biamonte. Excuse any name butchering there, but I decided to throw 7 Secrets into the DC episode just because Tom King, he's writing a lot for DC, so it felt like it fit, okay? This is Tom Taylor's Boom Studios indie epic. I'm absolutely digging this series. We're following, there's this organization called The Order. They keep secrets. 7, to be exact, if you couldn't guess off the title. There are keepers of these secrets, And then there are holders. And I guess the keepers hold the secret in a briefcase while the holder, I think, guards them. Maybe I'm flipping the two terms. This series has been filled with tons and tons of cool ideas. Some about espionage, like clandestine people, secrets, obviously. God, it's just been great. However, to this point, it's been very character-driven. We've met Sigurd and Eva. They were lovers, keeper and holder, who had a forbidden child by the name of Casper, and he's kind of seems to be the main character of this series. As a child, he was forfeited to the Order to be raised by it. I guess that's the rule. If you have a kid while you're working for the Order, that kid is null and void now for the Order. Now, in issue 3, we're finally catching up to the end of issue 1, because issue 2 was kind of Casper's origin story, you could say. Sigurd died at the end of issue 1. He was killed by the most villainous villain ever, Amon. And in this issue, the Order, they're running the trial for who is to fill Sigurd's shoes and become the new holder, I think. I'm kind of confused on who is what and what terminology applies to who. But, spoiler alert, Casper wins this trial thing. So to get into the meat of the issue a little bit, we open up with this intro scene from Amon, and oh my god, he is so very villainous. Like, everything from his look to his speaking style to his, persona, he's a goddamn villain, and I love it. He literally brings Sigurd's corpse to Buckingham Palace and, like, hooks him up to the gate, like, crucifies him on the gate, and leaves his decapitated head in a bag in front of Buckingham. Like, Jesus Christ. If that's not the most villainous thing I've ever seen. They notify the queen and everything, and she freaks out because they leave a note that just says, "We know," and it has the Order's little symbol on it. So, what the hell kind of dirt do they have on the queen is my first question. Is that one of the secrets? One of the 7? I'm not really sure. Apparently these secrets have existed for a long time. Maybe they switch up, maybe we don't. And that's kind of the thing. We don't really know a lot about the secrets at this point. We only really know a grip about the characters. Later, they're at Sigurd's funeral, and apparently he's friends with every single world leader, because Casper, he's like talking to the president of the US, and she's like, "I loved Sigurd. He was a great man." And he's just like, "How the hell do all of you people know my father?" But while we're at the funeral, we're getting like weird moments with this like masked dude. Like, who is this masked guy? Because he leans to Casper and says like, "Oh, it's a great honor that everybody's here for your dad." But like, who are you? You are very sus right now. I'm kind of expecting him to be villainous in some degree. Like, he's Amon's homie. Afterwards, Eva brings Casper into this room and gives him this box. And apparently Sigurd was filling this box with birthday presents for Casper every year. So he's 15. There's 15 gifts in there. Very cute. The scene is very adorable. There's some Tom Taylor, like, Boom Studio plugs in this scene, as well as The Clash's London's Calling. But there's like a Boom Studio comic, and then there's like a comic for this TV show that I'm pretty sure Tom Taylor wrote. It's a whole thing, but it was still a cool scene. Then Eva kissing Casper on the head is just adorable as hell. I loved that. The whole, like, "I'm your mom, but I can't be your mom" thing is very adorable. But they're kind of breaking that barrier down more and more. So that's kind of exactly what the Order doesn't want. Then the rest of the issue, they go into the trials to become the holder. And essentially, it's just torture over and over again. And the way to end it is to give up your secret. You know, that's sort of the gist, is you're never supposed to not hold your secret. Always hold it, no matter what, even if it means you die. Now, Casper wins in a pretty cool way. They're doing this, like, tightrope fight thing where him and the last opponent, they're on this, like, log up in the sky and they're fighting. Casper falls into the water. It's really cool because when this dude is told that he, like, won, he immediately gives his case over because he's like, "Yeah, I won." And they're like, "Yeah, no, you just lost because you just gave us the case." Like, it's so literal. Like, once we give you this case, never let go of it. And so they pull Casper out of the water and they're like, "Well, your opponent just lost, so you won." And she's like, "So you can hand me your case." And he's just like, "No." Like, because he's so traumatized at this point. And they're like, "Awesome. Now you actually have officially won because you are the last person standing." It ends briefly after, essentially with the most villainous villain shows up. He blows up something. He blows up someone's boat. And now it is time, and he wants those motherfucking secrets right now. God, overall, I really liked this book. It's a total blast. It's definitely a perfect balance between like character moments to cry to, and then action and suspense scenes to just lose your mind to. So in that regard, I recommend it to everybody. Honestly, I feel like, if anything, I have to shout out the colorist here. I mean, I love the art. The art is amazing, but specifically the colors here are just perfect. Like, you know, colorists don't get enough attention here in the comic world, but like all the colors just pop so much throughout this whole book. Everything is so bright and colorful, even when it's like, you know, pretty edgy and dark. Like that whole decapitation scene is still so just, I don't know, just, you have to open this book and you will see that like every page has just so many colors, and God, I just love it. And now I am very hyped for the next issue, because it's felt like these first 3 issues have really been just setting things up, and I'm sort of wondering when we're going to hit the full stride, right? Because right now, yes, there are 7 secrets, but we really don't know junk about them. So I want to start learning about the secrets or something like that. At least one secret, just give me one. I'm really loving Amon. He's such a cool goddamn villain. And I also have to shout out, you know how every comic ends with like, next time, like blah, blah, blah. I don't know, it ends with some little teaser word. This time they said next, absolute carnage. Taylor, how are you going to do that? You know that Donny Cates just wrote a whole huge ass event called Absolute Carnage. How are you going to bite him like that? I'm just playing. It's very cool. And overall, I'm very excited for the Absolute Carnage that will be the next issue. Moving on to our penultimate issue of this podcast episode, we're talking about Batman's Grave, issue 11, written by Warren Ellis, drawn by Brian Hitch, and colors by Alex Sinclair. The Grave of Batman. I've been digging this series, very much so. We're at issue 11, so ironically, the penultimate section of this podcast is about the penultimate issue of this series, because this is a 12-parter. We're on issue 11. It feels like this whole story has been hey, we know you miss Alfred because you know, Alfred died in the canon, and this series came out right when that happened, and Alfred's just been an amazing goober throughout the whole series. But regardless, last issue, Bruce has kind of finally figured out the motives of the villain here, and figures out his origin story on this goober that is doing his stuff of being a villain. His name is Scorn. And he's basically the if he was Batman. And let's just take a pause here to acknowledge, how many times have people said, it's like Batman, but if. However, the villain here, Scorn, is like Batman, but if his parents were killed by police. And so he swore war on the police instead of crime. So obviously there's been so many Batman like clones, like opposite of Batman antithesis sort of things. But this is like actually one of them, because it takes his origin story and really just kind of like switches the rails, takes a turn. Like, what if Batman swore his crusade on something else that wasn't crime? What if he swore it on order and policing? Well, that is what Scorn is. And I really dig that. Now, Batman finally understands all of this, and he's ready to throw down. In this issue, Scorn and Batman have that throwdown. And after Scorn's troops, they fuck up this whole police station. It's this whole crazy scene. And then here we hit the silent portion. If you've been reading this series, you know that every time there is some action, Warren Ellis just goes silent mode. And I love that. It makes this series super fun and super quick to read, but you still get a lot of story there. Batman gets just messed up by Scorn. Like, Scorn pieces Batman up totally. He shoots him in the chest. He stabs him with this blade thing. He kicks him around, and he's just sitting there. Batman gets a few licks in, don't get me wrong, but Batman is messed the hell up. And after recouping, Batman is ready to end this. He dons this badass bulletproof steel bat suit thing and is off to conclude this series. I thought this issue was just another really fun issue of this run. It's been a total blast to read, especially because of that whole style that they've committed to of about 60% silent action throughout the story. I have really dug that. I think it's just a really good idea for comic storytelling in general. And even though that I kind of dogged on the whole Batman, but if he was the opposite trope, I think it's just because that's a really played out trope. But like I was saying, this comic goes with a pretty cool version of that idea. It breaks Batman down for you to think he actually is pretty reactionary. Like, Batman is pretty reactionary because what if it wasn't crime that he was fighting against? What if it was something else? What if something else took his parents' lives? And we kind of get to see what that would look like. And it's sort of in the version of Scorn. If Batman's parents were killed by police that night, maybe he would essentially be Scorn. So I really like that idea. It makes you not only break down Batman as well as this new Scorn guy. And like I said, that bat suit at the end, holy hell, so cool. I'm so excited to watch the next issue where Batman likely gets in a fight and demolishes the entire suit. I'm sure it's going to get blown to pieces, but he looks so goddamn cool. So had to shout out that suit. And I'm very excited for the finale of Batman's Grave. Our last issue that we're talking about, it's Dark Knight's Death Metal issue 4 by the one and only creative team that could do something this nuts. And it's Scott Schneider and Greg Capullo, the dynamic duo. This has been a series of just batshit face-melting stuff. Like, I can't even wax about how insane this event has been. Like, it takes that insanity of metal, if you guys remember metal, and just, like, tweaks it up a notch and adds some spiked leather jackets to it because, goddamn, this event is truly very metal. It is super metal. I feel like if you're a metalhead, you're gonna love this comic because it pays homage to, like, metal music and metal culture in, like, a dozen ways, just throughout so many of the things. If anything, you're gonna love the character designs. Moving in, so much happens every single issue, and a lot of it I'm confused about, but a lot of it is awesome regardless. There has been a good handful of tie-ins, and I did skip a couple, okay? I have tie-in skepticism. So I didn't get Speed Metal, and I didn't buy Multiverse's End. However, I did buy Trinity Crisis, and I did a review for that on this podcast. Go check it out if you want to listen to it. That all being said, Trinity Crisis is super relevant here. I remember saying that in the review. Like, how is this not an issue of Death Metal? Because in Trinity Crisis, the Trinity themselves, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, they all travel two worlds that are continuously going through the three main crises, which is Crisis on Infinite Earths, Final Crisis, and Infinite Crisis. These worlds are feeding this crisis energy directly to Perpetua. And that is essentially where we pick up here. There's no need for recapping issue 3 because it was so long ago and honestly nothing is the same. So Trinity kind of felt like the last ish. And I gotta say, this issue was fucking awesome. However, it made a limited amount of sense. In this issue, we follow up on Trinity Crisis, obviously, and they're not doing good, okay? The gang is not doing very good. Batman, he's being, like, de-atomized by the Anti-Monitor. Superman is being thrown into, like, the fire pits by Darkseid, and he's just looking insane. And Wonder Woman has been captured by Superboy Prime and kind of learns that all three of these Trinity members, they've been taken to these worlds where they've lost the crisis event. And they're directing all of this crisis energy to the One Who Laughs, which I very much like as a name for the Batman Who Laughs, who has now been, like, powered up and now is this just dark shadow thing. So the One Who Laughs can recreate the multiverse in his image, I suppose. That is essentially the meat of the issue. Now, into my thoughts, I thought this issue was just awesome, super insane. It felt like I was watching a movie. However, it was very confusing. Every issue of Metal opens up with Sergeant Rock doing, like, a little catch-up thing where he's like, hey, you kid, hey, I'm liking you, but we gotta watch out here. Here's what's going on. This is happening, that's happening. Oh my God. And it's just very amusing to listen to Rock completely ramble off what's going on in, like, a very understandable way. And at this point, Rock is, like, just skin and bone, like, not even, like, fully up. Like, he's just bone skeleton at this point. However, he's still got the cigarette in his mouth, of course. But the rest of the issue is kind of just all the heroes in these little crisis moments, and I really liked these. They're totally insane. But the thing is, I haven't read any of these crisis events. I'm fairly new to the comic game, and so I didn't really know what a lot of the referencing was. I don't think there were actually that many references, but I really just don't feel the significance of, like, Superboy Prime and the Anti-Monitor and this Omega gray-haired Darkseid guy. Regardless, though, I thought these scenes were really cool, and I actually really dig Superboy Prime. So Infinite Crisis will probably have to be the event that I do check out. But I do have a question here. Who the hell has the Dr. Manhattan powers? I don't know at this point. I thought it was Wally West, but I guess it's the Batman Who Laughs, or now the One Who Laughs. Who the hell has his powers? Were there two Dr. Manhattans? I mean, then there's goddamn Batman Hatton. I don't know what the hell is going on. Later, there is this Robin King scene that's just super awesome, but it's so brutal for us as fans because we have to watch Jonah Hex die again. That was terrible. Apparently, he sent him straight to hell with this like enchanted blade. But regardless, that scene was super awesome. It was very cinematic. And then continually cinematic is Diana's conversation with Superboy here, trying to kind of convince him to be a good guy again. And I really dug that. It was very movie. It was very touching at times. They get this scene where they're all holding these things called like the Alfred boxes. I guess they're supposed to be like the mother boxes from the New God stuff. And all the Alfred boxes are being like melted and destroyed because that's kind of the plan, was that they would all go to these crises events and lose and forfeit the mother boxes and then send the energy right to the Batman Who Laughs. There is one really great quote in this issue from Diana, and she's talking to Superboy Prime, who basically his motivation is he's done all the things that he's done and sided with the Batman Who Laughs because he wants to create a world that finally has peace. It has heroes, they're not corrupt, and there's just peace on this planet. Diana hits him with the only constant in life is change type thing. And essentially, like, you either choose to roll with it or you die. And I thought that was just super, I don't know. It applied to my life in a lot of ways, and I think it can apply to everyone's life in a lot of ways because we're all really anxious just about changing and changes and what's going on. So I really dug that moment. I thought it was super heartwarming. And then we go into a even more cinematic scene where her and Superboy Prime are fighting. And God, I loved this scene. It was so cool. But this is where she drops a shot in the dark line, where she basically says, Superman, all he is a shot in the dark. And that's the title of this issue. It kind of took me back to reflect on that a tad, because Superman is a shot in the dark. Like, literally, if you go back to his origin story, I really like the nuance here that he was literally a shot in the dark. His parents just shot him away from his exploding planet into the dark that is space. But then it also like applies to what the squad in Death Metal is doing. They're all taking a shot in the dark here because they don't know how any of this is going to go with trying to rescue the whole multi-omniverse from this like demon who laughs. So I really enjoyed that nuance that they applied there. Okay, now this is the part of the review where I am not Mr. Nice Chase because I'm confused as hell at this ending. I'm mega confused because, so back to that conversation about the shot in the dark, Superboy Prime, he's about to just totally sock the shit out of Diana. He's like winding up this humongous punch, but then you turn the page and not only are all the Trinity there, because we saw Batman get atomized and we also saw Superman like become evil in the fire pits, but then Superboy Prime is also there. So the whole Trinity's fine. And Superboy Prime is there. What the hell is going on? What the hell was the rest of this issue? I'm very confused. So please, if that made sense to anybody else, can you explain that to me? You would help out your podcaster, because I'm just lost. But they get bean boozled at the end here by the Batman Who Laughs. They're sitting on the Mobius chair, and he's like, haha, I redirected all the energy to me, which was kind of like a little like, okay, like you just kind of bean boozled on him. But I still enjoy what's going on here because this shit at the end here is insane. The Batman Who Laughs, or the One Who Laughs, I guess, he's creating, I'll just read from it. He says, to make the multiverse in my own image. So let me be the first to welcome you to the last 52. What? I am off the wall. I'm just off the wall here. The last 52? Is this the new Crisis event? And don't even make me get into the whole DC future state thing. I'm still reeling after that. What the hell is happening? Death Metal, what are you doing to the DC canon? I'm just losing my mind here. Someone's got to help me. What the hell's going on? Is this the last 52? Was the new 52 not the last 52? Are we getting another 52? 104? What's going on? Help me. 7. And that does it for me this week. Now, disregard my mania that I just dipped into near at the end of that Death Metal review. That's just what Death Metal does to me. So do not worry. I am mentally sane and mentally stable for the time being. So I will be fine. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of New Age Comics Podcast. This was a DC specific episode. However, I was hoping this would lend me to like a really fast recording, like 30 to 20 minutes of recording. And I'm sitting here at an hour and a half. So I need to do something about this, guys. Like, I need some help. I need to figure out how to not talk about comics for hours, because it's just taking time out of my life. Now I got to edit this whole hour and a half podcast, and I still plan on doing the Marvel one. So I'm just all over the fucking place. Someone's got to help me. I put out a poll on my Twitter, and what it was is I pretty much extended the question: do you guys like in-depth comic reviews or short and sweet, punchy comic reviews? Y'all were pretty split on that, but you mainly said that you liked longer reviews. So I'm a little confused as to where you people stand. And so I'm curious, like, what's the ideal length for one of these episodes? Should I be hitting like 30 minutes? Should I be hitting, like an hour, 45 minutes, 20 minutes? Like, what's long, what's short? I don't know. I could honestly talk about comics all damn day. So that's the thing. I need some sort of filter. I'm now sitting here for an hour and a half, and I've been talking nonstop. So I guess if you're listening to this, let me know, like, was this too long? Was this too short? Should I shorten it up a little? I feel like I should for my own sake. But then I'm feeling like I'm leaving out good tidbits about comics. Maybe my tidbits aren't that good, and I'm giving myself too much credit here. But I want to know, how long should I be talking? I'm not really 100% sure on that. Moving forward, though, I'm hopefully going to make my Marvel episode not ridiculously long or anything. I mean, I don't know. For a while, I was doing really good on recording succinct episodes. And ever since I kind of stopped doing notes very scriptedly, I've just been rambling. So maybe I'll go back to scripting. I don't know. It probably is worse performance-wise, though. Maybe you guys don't even notice. Maybe I'm just the only one here really listening to myself at this point, but I will pretty much leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much for listening this week. Be sure to check out my Marvel episode that's going to be coming out. I'm not sure when. I got homework. I got shit to do. I got a life. Life is hard. Comics, sometimes they got to wait. That's the message that I should be leaving you guys with in this episode. If you got life stuff going on, the comics can wait. The comics will be there. However, I'm stressing myself out doing this whole episode release weekly thing. I'm trying to think about search engine optimization and all that shit, and it's making life a goddamn pain in the ass. Okay, I realized I just ended the pod and just started swearing like a fucking sailor and just complaining about everything. I don't mean it to sound like that. However, feedback is super valuable to me because I want this show to get better, and I also want it to be as easy on me as possible, which sounds selfish, but that's just how it is. So for the 10th time now, thank you guys so much for listening. It means the world for me. Please leave a like, subscribe, follow me on an app, comment on the episode, do all of that jazz, because it makes my day. I will leave it there. Check out for my Marvel episode, most likely later this week. And above all else, go read a comic book. All right, guys, I will talk to you in the next one. Have a good week. See ya.